Hi, this is Russ Andersson. In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about in-plane masking with SynthEyes' 3D planar trackers. So here's a shot, and this is from Hollywood Camera Works, and we want to go and do a picture insertion into this frame. And I'm scrubbing through the shot, and that's always got to be your first step, is to make sure you know what you're looking at. And here we actually have a mirror in the middle of the frame, and we're going to need to take that into account when we do our tracking. So the area that we're going to ultimately want to do our work on is here. That's where you're going to want to put the picture. But that's not what you want to track, because what's inside of there, it's constantly changing throughout the shot. And sometimes you'll see that people will put a green screen rectangle in that area instead. And the same thing still applies there, but for slightly different reasons. That you don't want to be tracking just that piece as green screen, because it's just flat and featureless. So, the tracker can just compress down to a point or do pretty much anything at all without any impact on the figure of merit that it uses to decide whether it's in the right spot or not. So you want to be tracking the surrounding area as well. And here there's a nice frame that we can track. And if you scrub through, you'll see that there's a complication too, that frame is somewhat transparent as well, that there are lots of holes in it. But the net impact of this whole thing, though, is that we're going to start out by tracking this entire frame. So let's get that set up here. So there we've got our basic corners positioned. Now let's think about what we want to do about that interior portion. There you can see the rest of the room in that mirror pretty nicely. So I'm just bringing up the planar options panel, and remember that if your monitor is bigger, it's sitting underneath the search region. So in this planar options panel, there is the section that's in-plane masks, and that's what we're going to be working with today. So to create a mask, we're just going to click on the Create wand. And now we can go over into the main camera view and do pretty much the same thing. Now I'm just clicking here and I'm getting, hard corners. If I hold down Control and move around a little, you'll see that we go to a smooth corner, and then I'll let Control go again. So as you're doing this, you can switch to regular smooth or corner vertices, control points as you go along. So I just laid down those 4 corners. Now when I get to the end here, I'm just going to right click on the mouse, and that terminates that spline. So now let's go take a look at the tracker mini view, and you see that actually we're looking at the part that we don't want to look at, and the part that we do want to watch is being ignored. So the control for that is over in this in-plane masks area again, and we want to change this from a positive mask to a negative mask. So we said ignore this area. So now you see that our mini view is now showing more what we want, the checkerboard area being ignored in the middle, and we're going to be tracking this outer part. Now you can create any number of masks using that panel. So I can go over, and if I wanted, I'll do some control clicking, and there we go. Start laying out a few points around some of the little decorative features here. And create additional holes. So another couple points to this. If I have a point that I want to change the type, I can just go and double click it, and that switches it back and forth between a smooth and a corner point. I can also go hold down Shift and create a new control point anywhere along it, or alternatively I can Shift and right click and take that control point out. So there are a whole bunch of additional little mouse modes and features like that that are all listed in the manual. Now if we look over in the tracker view, you'll see this guy is being ignored and taken out, and that would make sense in this particular thing. If I switch it around the other way, then it's doing nothing at all, because we've got a layered stack up of these different masks in place. And you can actually change the order of these so that now I made this little tiny one be the one at the bottom, so it's saying ignore all the rest of it. So that makes the other one here kind of redundant. So if you think about this a little, you can see you can get all kinds of different combinations of putting these things together and whatnot to accomplish what you need to build up a more complicated shape, if you like. And then you can move these guys around, or of course just delete them once you're done with them, or if they're not needed. And one thing I'll point out is that the in-plane masks are not animatable. These are to be used for features like this that are really attached to the surface that you're tracking. So there's a separate set of features for animating things like actors and so on that are moving around in front of the planar tracker, but these in-plane masks are for use with stationary features that are really traveling along with the plane itself. So we have this basically set up. I could go and adjust it to pick up the B's here that stick out. Basically it just doesn't really matter. It's just a matter of getting it reasonable enough to be able to track. Then once we've done that, you can go and track through the rest of the shot, and you'll see that the portions that are moving in the back through the holes in that frame aren't really having an appreciable effect, but we've masked out the really big portions that would be more likely to affect and throw off the tracking by using this in-plane mask. So now that we've got the tracking complete, we're ready to do some exporting if we'd like. So we're just going to bring up the planar tracking script bar. We have a couple of different options here. We could go and export to any of the 3D exports using the export prep script, which changes this into a moving camera, moving object scene. Or we can go into After Effects using one of the 3D exports. Or in this case, the animated corner pin is perhaps the reasonable approach. So let's do that here. Just use the default settings, and this is going to run it immediately, so it's going to happen basically very quickly right then. So just have to switch back there. So we've loaded it up, automatically into After Effects, and we've got this placeholder sitting on top of the whole picture frame. Not just the middle part where we want to put the picture, but as you recall, when we set up the planar tracker, we needed to include the entire picture frame to have something to track. So now, in order to be able to insert something, we need to get down to that inner area. So let's do that now. I'll just show a quick and dirty way to do that. And I'm just creating another comp, and we'll bring in some additional footage, put that into the comp. Now we'll take this new comp and alt drag that onto the placeholder. So now the new footage is there. It's a little shorter than the whole source clip, but because we have this intermediate comp, now we can go back into that and adjust the sizing of it to be inset into the picture frame accordingly. I'm sure there's a clever way to do this with multiple viewers or whatnot, but bottom line, we're going to get there pretty quickly. So there we go. We have our inset picture. And probably we'd want to do a little masking to allow the tops of the bees to show there. We can actually do that back in this intermediate comp if we wanted. So in this tutorial, we ran through the in-plane masking and gave you an idea of how that all works. Now this is just a little bonus coverage of showing what we can do with it, just really quick in After Effects. So thanks for watching.